The growth has staggered even me, and I'm one of the people in the world, my glass is always half full instead of half empty. I'm always optimistic for the future, but I'm staggered with how well this has worked. And of course, once you gain momentum in any business, life becomes a lot easier. People give you more respect. Other TV stations would look at Sky's ratings and say, well, we want some of that. Other sponsors would look at the benefits for sponsorship that was already being delivered and say, we're missing out here. Let's not miss out. Existing sponsors will want to tie into long-term plans rather than a short-term fix. All of these things added together just maintain the momentum. And now we have a situation on things like the Premier Snooker League. We'll start off at O2 on the 11th of February next year. There'll be 16,000 people in there watching a game of darts, beyond anyone's comprehension of 5 years ago. Ticket sales are 30 to 40% up year on year. Ratings are 15 to 25% up year on year. So this is not just Barry Hearn bullshit. This is actual hard facts that other people can look up in their bar board, look in their broadcast magazine and actually understand it. This has been, for me, the most exciting 5 years I've probably had in business. And I've done quite a lot of different things. But now we're creating, which I always should have done with snooker 20 years ago, but probably didn't know enough. We're creating the global audience. So now we begin Far East tours, African tours, Australian tours, Middle East tours, American tours. Everything changed. We'll do 58 darts events worldwide this year. Prize money's up to around 6 million. Sponsorship income on that is probably 2 or 3 times that. And suddenly we've created a proper living for darts players, which in turn is aspirational to the younger player, same as snooker. In 5 years' time, I'm sure we'll see a whole wealth of new kids coming in that can challenge the powers today. But the journey is what makes it worthwhile. And of course, you know, everyone eats, everyone gets value for money. Sky, I started with 17 years ago, and they were obviously just beginning. And they were an avenue for me to put my events on television, perhaps in those days to a quite restricted audience. But it was a relationship that grew because I felt they had a passion for sport. It's a little bit easier for me now than perhaps it was. You know, when 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I'm bashing down doors, people have never heard of Barry Hearn, never heard of the sports I represent, look at you as if you were mad sometimes. Now I've got, you know, getting a track record in any business is really useful. I know who to speak to, I know the level I can deal at, I know that I will get in there, and once I get in the door, I'm dangerous because I will pitch with passion and I'll have a reasonably high success rate. In a recession, it's slightly harder because budgets are cut, people are sitting on their hands, which is very stupid, whereas they should be out there trying to get a bigger market share in these cheaper times. But nevertheless, reputation means I get a chance to get to the right decision maker quicker than any of my rivals. I can understand where Rupert's coming from, and I think it's a mistake. We shall have to wait and see. I mean, far from me to say that the mogul of all moguls ever makes an error. I remember in the early days, he was one of the first investors into the internet, and he was the first person to get out as well. And when he went back in again, he did it properly. I think it's dangerous, but it's his money. I think because you're dealing with historic nature of individuals that are used to either A, buying their newspaper every day, and clearly we see circulation falling, more people having internet access. The fact that something has been free for quite some time sticks in the backs of throats of normal people that now they've got to pay for it. And you need to have something very special to drive that. So for example, if you took the comparison to the Sky Pay networks, they have a product that is not available anywhere else. But there's other ways. By driving traffic, you can utilise that traffic for a range of other things. The most important thing is audience. As I said earlier, without ratings on my TV shows, I die. Without circulation on my newspaper, I'm dead. Without visits to my website, I'm dead. If I've got the visits, even if the standard form of exploitation is not looking so good, in other words, banner advertising, I still look at the traffic and ask myself the question, okay, if I've got these millions of people visiting my sites that are losing me loads of money, what can I do with those people? What can I do with those databases? When you've got that type of traffic, you say, and that type of database, if you can attract a database from it, has a very real commercial value. The rest of the industry will stand back and say to Mr. Murdoch, well, we're not sure. You have a go. If it works for you, then maybe we'll all do it. If not, in the meantime, we'll be advertising that it's free on ours. Just out and out charging someone for something they've had for free may not be a new way, maybe a backward step. I think it's a brave move. Whether it's a little bit ahead of his time, I suspect it will be, but we'll have to wait and see on the numbers. As I say, I'd like to be a pound note behind Rupert Murdoch. He's made more correct decisions than I've made decisions, and I'm sure he didn't do this hastily, but it is a climatic change in the purchasing power for individuals that want to be kept up to date. The first thing you look at is technical excellence. Without that, you're wasting your time. Having got a tick in the box for technical excellence, then you start talking about exploitation. What can I do with this person that in his or her chosen field seems to have ability, but there's more ways of skinning a rabbit. It's not just about ability, it's about persona. I remember in the early days of snooker where we literally got 8 snooker guys in a room and said, okay, look, let's just put a head around this. Jimmy White, you're the sort of ducker and diver. You're the artful dodger character. Steve Davies, you're a bit boring, very reliable. You wear black suits, white shirts and drink water. Willie Thorne, you're a maniac gambler, so we'll use that. You're going to be the tipster, the gambler, the Jack the Lad. Tony Mio, you're Italian. You're going to cry a lot. And he would go through all of this, so everyone would have their character role. Now, we weren't adding anything. We were just bringing out what their character was. So someone like Christopher Livingston Eubank, you know, made to be a showman, but still just, and it was a two-way thing. It wasn't just me saying you should do this. You know, Eubank would say, how do you feel about the jodhpurs and the riding gear? And I'd say, they look great with a monocle. He'd say, monocle. Terry Thomas wore a monocle. I like Terry Thomas. And then you'd develop from there. The consumer today, the sports consumer, wants to know much more. They want more stats on performance. They want more personal details. They want to get inside the person because then they're going to make a decision to support them or not support them. Doesn't make any difference. Sometimes you sell as many tickets with people who want to see them beat as that want to see them win. Certainly in Eubank's case, Nazim Hamid, there was a certain amount of that as well. Sometimes they just say, this bloke is like us. Like Phil Taylor on the darts. The average working man says, I like him. If you start with a product, it's got to be a good product or you're wasting your time. So let's assume you've got a good product. Now the second secret is to tell everybody about it. Well, if you're going to tell everybody about it, you better make it interesting because otherwise they're not going to print it because it's boring. Now if you can then go on and from then onwards, you're into the heavy metal stuff, aren't you? You know, whether it's celebrity endorsement, whether it's sponsored events, whether it's website branding, whether it's streaming rights on the video, whether there's going to be some other creative nonsense in there. But it's all aimed at making people famous. Things and people need to be famous. They need to be in the public domain. You ideally need someone sitting at a bar in a pub saying, you know what, I tried that such and such last night, it's good. How do you get them talking about it? You know? And that's how it works for a lot of the sports we do, where people will sit and say, did you see the darts last night? Bloody hell, that Phil Taylor's a miss. Game, set and match. 2 prospective clients. Word of mouth is still a better way of advertising than anything else if you've got the right product. But you need the other media feeding stories. And there's never a day off. There's never an hour off. There's never a moment where you don't lose an opportunity to push your case. It's not just, unfortunately, a lot of people that have new brands and new products, they become like their children. There they are. They're so proud of them, they're there.